Hello and welcome to this special election edition of the Lion Spotlight. I'm WLTS News Director James DeGeno. We at TV21 invited both candidates running to represent New Jersey's 3rd Congressional District to sit down with us. The 3rd District encompasses most of Ocean County, including Lacey Township, as well as much of Burlington and some of Camden counties. Longtime Congressman Jim Saxton will be retiring at the end of his term after over 20 years of service. This highly contested race will decide who succeeds him. We would like to thank the campaigns for Republican Chris Myers and Democrat John Adler for setting up these interviews. Joining us now is Medford Mayor Chris Myers, who is the Republican candidate for the 3rd Congressional District. He graduated from Shawnee High School, later earning a bachelor's degree in political science from the University of Colorado and a master's degree in public administration from Cornell University. He is a decorated combat veteran of the U.S. Navy, serving in the Persian Gulf War. He is the Vice President for Lockheed Martin Maritime Systems and Sensors. Mr. Myers, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to sit down with us today.
James, happy to be. Love being in Lacey. Great time today.
Are you enjoying the campaign thus far?
Absolutely, it's been a lot of fun. We've been talking to a lot of different folks and hearing what they have to say. And you know, their main message is they want to get the economy moving. And as a businessman, I understand that. So it's been great talking to a lot of folks.
To begin with, would you please explain for our viewers what the role and responsibilities for the 3rd District congressmen are?
Sure. I mean, basically the role of any congressman or congresswoman in the Congress is to essentially pass laws or be part of the process of passing law. And in the House of Representatives, that's where the money bills start. So the appropriations process is a big deal in the House of Representatives. And then, but on top of that, the job of the congressman is to represent his district, his constituents from the congressional district. And as you said, this goes all the way from the river over near Philadelphia and Cherry Hill all the way out to the ocean. So it's a big congressional district. So there's lots of different constituent needs and issues. So it's my job to make sure that they're well represented in Washington before the federal process. And then also, if they've got problems with the federal bureaucracy, which is really large, we need to help them with that federal, get through those processes, whether it's Social Security claims, passport issues, whatever it is. We need to make sure that their interaction with the federal government is as easy as possible. So that's one of the things that I think is important for a congressman to do.
Right. You're involved in a very competitive race.
Right.
The most recent poll,
they're all competitive these days, right?
The most recent poll from late September shows a statistical dead heat between you and your opponent, John Adler. Approximately 1/5 of the voters remain undecided. Why do you think there is still a large number of uncommitted voters, and how do you plan to persuade those citizens to vote for you?
Sure, that's great. Actually, the latest polls have us up about 4 points with a lot less undecided folks. So basically, our message is essentially working. As a combat vet, but mainly as a businessman. If I'm elected to Congress, I'll be one of only 5 business leaders from a publicly traded company in the Congress. Only 5. Most of them are lawyers or other things. They're not business people. And in this time of economy, the last thing we need to do is send another lawyer down to Washington. We need to send some business people down to Washington. So talking to folks, and I have some specific policies on how to get the economy moving, because my concern is jobs. You're going to be going to college soon. Your listeners are going to be going to college soon. You know, my company is the largest employer of engineers in the entire United States. I want to get more engineers hired and more other people hired. The only way we're going to do that is jumpstart the economy by focusing on creating jobs. And as a business person, I've created about 2,000 jobs here in the area. I understand how to create jobs. And so when we contrast that with my opponent, John Adler, who's a lawyer and a 16-year Trenton politician, he's never created a job. He doesn't understand the economy. And here in New Jersey, we have the highest tax state in the nation. And we are the 2nd worst state in the nation in job creation. So the 2nd worst in job creation and the highest tax state in the nation. He's voted for all that. He can't create jobs. We need more business people down there. And when I talk to people that resonates pretty well, because I want to get you hired when you graduate from college.
Jim Saxton has been a highly respected representative of the 3rd District. If you're elected to this position, you'll have big shoes to fill.
Right.
Have you decided what your top priorities for the district will be when you represent it in Washington?
Absolutely. In fact, I was just with Jim Saxton earlier today, and the main issues are, that's why he endorsed me to run in this race, because he thinks that I have the same kind of thought process that he did for this district. And there's a lot of priorities, but some of the main ones are the economy. We got to get the economy moving. As I told you, as a business person, I understand how to create jobs and how we need to fix the tax code to incentivize people to create jobs here in the United States. You know what? It's only 11% tax to start a business in Ireland, but it's 35% here in the United States. We need to fix that kind of stuff so we can get people, start businesses right here in the U.S. So that's the first thing. Second thing was that we have 3 military bases in this district, Lakehurst, McGuire, and Fort Dix. Jim Saxon was great at saving those bases. I'll be great at saving those bases because 2 things. One, as a combat veteran, I understand the military, and there's not an admiral or general that's going to snow me on an issue. But secondly, as a defense industry leader, I know exactly what the regulations are. So when I get down to Washington in the defense area, I don't have to learn about it. I'll hit the deck running, as we say in the Navy. I'll be right there because I've done all this stuff before, where my opponent, John Adler, has done nothing but to be in Trenton, so he doesn't understand defense stuff. We've got to understand in this congressional district, defense is critical. There's 3 bases, all the different companies that are surrounded, and we need to get more companies surrounding those bases. So that's sort of the second one, and the third one is our beaches. We're in a major beach replenishment initiative out in Long Beach Island. Lots of tourists come to Ocean County. We need to keep them coming to Ocean County to spend money here in Ocean County. That's one of the things that I think is a priority, and to do that we need to keep the Barnegat Bay clean, we need to keep the beaches clean, we need to replenish them. So the beach areas and the Ocean County tourism community is absolutely critical.
Even before the latest economic problems in our country, New Jersey was already dealing with serious high deficit issues.
That's right.
You stated, and let me quote you here, Adler voted with John Corzine to increase our taxes, drive jobs out of the state, and destroy our economy. Adler failed to change Trenton. How can we expect him to change Washington?
Correct.
My question to you is how do you expect to change Washington?
Yeah, absolutely. And we have some, if you go to my website, www.chrismyersforcongress.com, it lists them all. But let me just give you a few things. The first thing we do in order to create jobs is we need to, basically, as I said, it's 11% in Ireland, 35% here. We need to cut the U.S. business tax rate to get jobs created here in the United States, one. Secondly, we need to do something. If I were to build a product, I build lots of products here in the United States, it costs me twice as much in the U.S. than it does overseas because they're on a value-added tax, we're on an income tax. We need to get rid of that disparity by something called a cross-border adjustment tax. All of your parents out there pay something called the AMT tax. A lot of small businesses invest their own money in their business. We need to get rid of that tax in order to get folks going. We need renewable energies. And one of the ways to get renewable energies is what's called an investment tax credit to get private equity guys from New York and Connecticut and all the money people to invest in renewable energy. If you give them an investment tax credit, that's going to build things and create jobs. We've got to change something called depreciation schedules, which allows people to buy high-tech equipment quickly, write it off so they can buy it, and it creates jobs. Right now, our tax code, as all what I just stated there, and the way we have it written, and the numbers on it, are disproportionately against creating jobs in the United States. I have to do business in that. I've sat in the boardrooms to make these decisions on where to put jobs. We have to make those boardroom decisions to say we're going to put them in the United States, and the only way to do that is to change that tax code and to lower those numbers as I talked about. And folks say, well, if you lower the taxes, how are we going to afford stuff? In reality, taxes are different than budgets. If I can lower the tax for businesses and people, then those businesses will reinvest in themselves and start jobs. We see it all the time. There's a reason that New Jersey ranks #1 in taxes and then the second worst in job creation. Correlates. Large taxes, no jobs. That's what John Adler has voted for, and that's all documented. John Corzine has done that, as well as Jim McGreevey. These guys aren't business folks, don't understand the economy real well. John Adler doesn't. He's voted for all that stuff, and has gotten those jobs out of New Jersey. We have had 200,000 people leave New Jersey since '02. 200,000. So if you look at New Jersey as a microcosm and we do the tax policies the way we do, everybody leaves. I don't want those policies down in Washington because he's voted for them in New Jersey. If he votes for them in Washington, it will kill the economy. As the economy slides down, the worst thing you can do is raise taxes on everybody. We've got to make it sure so you get a job, all your listeners out there get a job, or your viewers, excuse me. The only way to do that is focus on job creation. And as one of only 5 business leaders that would be in the Congress, they don't know the business. I'll be able to convince them that we need to do these things or business will not thrive in the United States.
Do you feel negative ads are effective, or do you feel it's more important to focus on the issues?
I think you need, it's not really negative ads, it's really what we call contrast ads. What I think is important is there's a lot of different definitions. What a contrast discussion is, here's what Chris Myers stands for, and here's where I am on the record. A combat veteran, a job-creating businessman, and someone that's actually cut a tax in their life. I've cut taxes in the town where I'm the mayor. Versus John Adler, who is someone that's been a career Trenton politician for 16 years, has voted for 43 tax increases since '02, has made this state the second worst in job creation in the entire United States, and you're going to be getting a job soon. It's tough to get a job in New Jersey because of these policies. Thirdly, he's not a veteran and doesn't understand veterans. That's a contrast piece, and I think that's fair game. Where I think it's not fair game is when people run ads that are personal and negative personal, but what fair ads are, what is your record? If you can detail the record, in every ad that I run or every mail that I do, we have specific sources on where you can locate the data. If 200,000 people left the state, here's where the source. The source on we're the second worst in the nation for job growth and the highest tax state in the nation is from the Nonpartisan Tax Foundation. You go to their website, it details all the different states and where they are. That's a result. So the New Jersey economy was bad before the national economy was bad because of these policies. It's going to get worse in the worst economy. So folks that have voted for all of that, like my opponent, if they go to Washington, they're going to make it much worse down in D.C. in the economy.
In your opinion, what is the most important issue facing the 3rd District?
Again, I think the most important issue is the economy. We have got to get the national laws restructured to make it easy to create jobs in the United States, easier to create jobs. If we do not focus on job creation in this downturn economy, we're done. We've got to get more jobs started, because if we get more jobs started, people will then start the next job. What I always say, when I've built plants in different areas and started businesses, for every one job I create, it creates 7 other jobs. So you've got to go to the Walmart to buy school supplies, you've got to go buy a car, you've got to go buy tires. So every one job you create, it creates about 7 other jobs. That's where you get the revenue up to get us out of this mess. If you stop job creation and if you put taxes too high to stop job creation, then you can't get us out of this mess. And that's what I think the biggest concern is. We've got to get job creation started.
Lacey Township contains the Oyster Creek Nuclear Power Plant. It's the oldest operational nuclear plant in the United States. There are people who are concerned about the safety of the plant and people who are concerned of the ramifications if it shuts down.
Right.
Do you think it should remain open?
Well, I've said all along, I'm a big proponent of nuclear power. I think nuclear power is very important, and Oyster Creek should be recertified and open as long as the NRC says it's safe. I mean, none of us are the expert, the NRC is. They say it's safe, it should be recertified and open. I've toured that plant. I used to work in nuclear stuff in the Navy. It's an excellent plant as far as I can tell. The security is top rate. Since 9/11, the security has been. So it looks as a very well-run facility in my mind. So if the NRC says it's safe, it should be recertified. And again, this is a perfect example of how New Jersey isn't helping our businesses out. There's enough room if you wanted to do, you could put another reactor there. And then you could have redesigned the whole system if you wanted to change it. The state could have helped them fund that. They chose not to. So the company's building another power plant in Texas instead of New Jersey. That's not job creation. That is job negation. We got to get folks thinking about how to create jobs. And unfortunately, my opponent, Senator John Adler, has voted for all this stuff that has gotten rid of our jobs. The nuclear power plant, if as long as NRC says it's safe, it should be recertified, and we should get going on it.
Speaking of alternative sources of energy, how do you feel about offshore drilling and the installation of offshore windmills? Do you think they will directly impact tourism and the fishing industry, both of which are very important to Ocean County?
It is, absolutely. I think the windmills are great. In fact, a lot of the fishermen are investing in the windmills, because what happens when you put a windmill in, all the fisheries form around it. So a lot of fishermen are investing in the windmills. So I think the windmills make a lot of sense. There is no oil off the coast of New Jersey. So drilling for oil off the coast of New Jersey is a moot point, because there isn't any, the geologists tell us. Where I believe we need to drill right away is the shale oil in Colorado. There's 800 billion barrels of oil in Colorado and Utah that we know where it is. We could set up drilling tomorrow, and the Congress, under the Democrats here, just don't want to do it. So that's why everybody's arguing, in my view, about offshore drilling. The reason they're arguing, because they know that's going to be arguing for 10 years. I want to stop the argument. As a business person, we always have Plan B. The other thing we do is, if you're going to spend your next marginal dollar, that next dollar, where's the best place to spend it? It's not arguing, it's drilling for oil right now. If we do not drill for oil right now, we're in trouble. We have got to get our dependence off of foreign oil. So drilling in Colorado makes perfect sense. There's a whole bunch of oil there. We got to do it right away.
Lacey Township School District has done a lot of research into putting up solar panels to reduce the school's use of energy. How do you feel about solar power and other forms of renewable energy? I
think solar power and other forms of renewable energy are great. And that's why I've called for a 20-year investment tax credit for any private business that wants to invest in it. We give them a tax break. They start the plant. They start a business, and they can create jobs. At Lockheed Martin, in my current position, I started the solar power business at Lockheed Martin Corporation. So we're building 250 megawatt plants in different places of the United States. So I think solar power makes a heck of a lot of sense. And that's why I'm doing it. All the engineers that work for me, a lot of them just a little older than you and maybe some of your viewers, love working on renewable energies, love working on solar power. So for me, not only is it a great energy technology, it's a way to get young engineers and young finance folks into our business because it's exciting, it's new technology. And again, as a business person, I understand what it takes to create jobs. And you want to get in exciting technologies because you want the best workforce that you can have. And I'm a big believer in that. So you give them a great place to work and great stuff to work on. So it was like a three-win. You know, one, it's great for getting our dependence off of foreign oil. It's great for the company to get into new business. And thirdly, it's great for our engineers to work on some really exciting and new technology. So as the head of new business development, I know how to create jobs. It's my job to create jobs or I'm fired, right? So I know how to create jobs, and getting into solar power and the other forms of renewable energy has been great business, but it's great for our young engineers as well.
Being that you're in a school, let's talk education.
Sure.
What do you think about the No Child Left Behind Act, and is there anything you would like to see changed about
Well,
it?
it's not funded. I mean, the problem is it's a perfect example of a law that was passed but not funded. It's called an unfunded mandate. In the state of New Jersey, they do that all the time. Senator Adler has voted for lots of that stuff, telling townships, you have to do this, you got to do that, but you don't fund the township. So that means your parents and me, we all have to pay for this because the state doesn't fund it. That's wrong. It's wrong at the federal government level. There's two things the federal government doesn't fund well for schools. No Child Left Behind, they didn't fund it, they need to fund it. Second thing is every school is required for special needs education, but they only funded about 30%, 30 cents on the dollar. We need to up that funding for special needs children, send it directly to your school, not through the state bureaucracy, because you'll just waste the money on slush funds. We need to send it straight to your school so your administrators here can then use that for property tax relief, and then you get better services for special needs kids. There are two ways we can help schools directly.
Is there anything Congress can do to help offset the cost of higher education?
Absolutely. In fact, in my plan, I have two proposals. One is we want to increase the Pell Grant aid, so aid to students, particularly those that want to look at science and technology, but really for any major. We need to give more aid to schools because schools are getting so expensive it's ridiculous. Even when I was in school at Cornell, it was expensive, but it's getting worse now. It's a heck of a lot worse. We have got to get more Pell Grant aids to students because if we are not teaching the kids of our country, particularly in science and technology, but all the subjects, we're going to be losing out to foreign competition. That's another reason it's tied with the jobs. If we don't create a job market to hire the folks, we're going to have all our workers going overseas, and we don't want that. We've got to get the higher education Pell Grants up, change the laws so we can create jobs easier in the United States. And then also I would expand the 529 accounts, and that's an account where you and your parents can put money in tax-free, essentially that is only for college, and it grows, as you know, as soon as you're born, you can open a 529 account. And that account allows you to help pay for college. So we need to expand the Pell Grants to give more aid for education. And then thirdly, focus on jobs. We don't create jobs, all this stuff's a moot point. We got to create jobs.
I know you had mentioned this earlier, but
yeah.
There are three major military bases that are a very important part of the
Absolutely.
3rd Congressional District. And with the base scheduled to close in Monmouth, are base closings a major concern of yours?
Absolutely, they always are. Jim Saxon has done a great job at saving the 3 bases here, working with Chris Smith, the other congressman in Ocean County. And I'm going to be in that same mold, or Jim would not have endorsed me. Jim believes that my background as a combat veteran, my experience as a defense industry leader, I know all of the operational policies and I know all the defense acquisition policies. So there, again, as I said before, there's not an admiral or general that's going to fool me on any base issue. We'll be able to articulate those base issues. And since I'm already knowledgeable in the whole process, I don't need to learn the job. My opponent, John Adler, is going to have to learn how to do that stuff. He doesn't know anything about the defense business. As I've often said, folks that have been in government in Trenton, the only military experience there's been in Trenton is when George Washington crossed the Delaware many years ago. So they just don't do military stuff. It's not their fault. They just don't do it. I do it all the time, so I'll be able to get down to Washington and fight for those bases right away where my opponent will not. Also, we just announced here today that the leader of the Republican House of Representatives, John Boehner, has said he will support me and to select me to be on the House Armed Services Committee, just like Jim Saxton is. And that's critically important, because being on the House Armed Services Committee, I'll have direct access to the base issues and all the military policy issues. And I don't think my opponent's going to be on the House Armed Services Committee. So we've got to get someone in the 3rd Congressional District on the House Armed Services Committee, and the leadership has already pledged to me that I'll be on it. So that's critical.
Speaking of the military, how do you think the government should proceed with the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan?
We've got to get out of both those. We've got to get out of both Iraq and Afghanistan in a way that, two ways. One is we stabilize them, but secondly, we get out in such a way that we're victorious. Because the worst thing we can do right now, and I've fought these guys over there, I fought a lot of them. The worst thing we can do right now is show weakness. So if they view us as winning or interpret our actions as winning, we're in trouble. They'll hit the United States again. When I was in the Navy, I served overseas to make sure no one ever hit the United States of America. We were hit. We never want to be hit again. You probably knew some folks maybe in the towers. I certainly knew folks. I knew folks in the Pentagon that were killed. I don't want my family and friends getting killed in the United States by terrorists. So we've got to make sure that we don't demonstrate any weakness overseas, that they know we won. Secondly, Iran. Iran is ruled by a leader that says he can envision a day when the United States and Israel be wiped off the face of the map. Someone says that publicly, you got to take him seriously. So we got to make sure that we don't show weakness because of Iran either. If Iran gets a nuclear weapon, we're in trouble. So we got to make sure they don't get a nuclear weapon, and that we pull out of there in a way that makes sense. And the same way of Afghanistan. Fix these terrorist problems, make sure they don't hit the United States, and get our troops home.
I know this is a difficult question, but we all make mistakes. Is there any vote or decision you made in your political career that you wish you could change?
No, not really. I mean, there's nothing that I'm going through my vote in the Medford Township record. Most of the things I've looked at, I think from a voting perspective, I think we've done a pretty good job at it, and I've made the decisions that make sense. I think certainly in business, there's probably more decisions that I made that lost some business versus one business. I wish I would have made that decision that may have won the business. I certainly won more business than I've lost, but we've all lost things. And the important thing from losing things is you learn stuff. And what you always have to remember, if you lose business or you do something wrong, how can you learn from that and move on to the future? So there are certain key decisions made there, and that I've learned that helped me win new business later on. So we've won. I have to win about $5 billion of business a year. So you learn from those decisions and move them on. So I think that's some of those decisions I would have done X instead of Y. It would have helped, but I've learned from that, and that's helping me win business here in the future.
What do you feel is the most fundamental difference between you and your opponent, John Adler?
I think there's three fundamental differences. I'm a combat veteran, he is not, so I understand the military policies, and that particularly with these three bases that are so critical to the 3rd Congressional District, he doesn't know anything about those. So I think that's the one. He doesn't know anything about veterans. We have the largest number of veterans of any congressional district. I have much more understanding as veterans because I am a veteran. Secondly, I'm a business person. And as I said before, if I get elected, I'll be one of only 5 business people from a publicly traded company in the Congress. They're all lawyers. Nothing wrong with lawyers. We need a lot of lawyers. But we got a lot of it in Washington. We need to diversify things down there to get some more business people. Because if we're going to get out of this mess that the economy is, we got to get business people down there that have done this before. We just don't have many. So, and my opponent's a lawyer, and he's a 16-year state senator from Trenton. So he doesn't have the experience in business that I do. And lastly, as a tax-cutting mayor, I understand what it means to cut taxes to people and why it really helps them out. Whereas Senator Adler has raised taxes 43 times since 2002. This state ranks number 49th in business-friendly, and we're the highest tax state of the nation. So if you vote for all that stuff, there's no way you're going to vote for good stuff in Washington, because that's a 16-year track record. So that's a big difference between he and I. So I'm a combat vet, a job-creating business person, and a mayor that's cut taxes, and he's someone that's raised taxes and thrown jobs out of the state. It's a big difference.
And finally, please take the time to tell the residents of the 3rd Congressional District who will be going to their polling places on Tuesday, November 4th, why they should select you to represent them.
Absolutely. I think to sum it up real quick, I'm a combat vet. I understand the bases. I'm a job-creating businessman. I know how to create jobs. I have created thousands of jobs here in the district. We're the largest employer in the district. I know how to create jobs, and where my opponent does not. And I also understand what tax cuts help people out, whereas my opponent's a tax raiser. So I think that's a big difference. As a combat vet, a job-creating business person, and a tax-cutting mayor versus a career Trenton politician who's involved in slush funds, someone that's never created a job in his life and keeps raising our taxes. It's a big difference.
This interview will be seen on TV 21, which broadcasts to the residents of Lacey Township.
Great.
Keeping that in mind, I ask you, what is your favorite township in the 3rd District?
Lacey Township, right?
I threw you a softball.
It's a great time in Lacey Township.
Thank you so much for taking the time for this interview. Good luck November 4th.
Thanks. Really appreciate it, Jim. Thank you very much.
WLTS News, I'm James DeGeno. Have a great day.